About 10 years ago, I found myself in a place that I never dreamed I would be. To the outside world, it looked like I had my life together. I was touring the country. I was recording albums. I was singing at harvest crusades. But what no one knew was that behind closed doors, I was living in a dangerous home with domestic violence, extreme control, physical and verbal abuse. And when I was assaulted in front of my then 2-year-old daughter, I can remember his hands around my neck, holding my face into a mattress, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see my little girl crying in the corner, and I knew that if I survived that night, I needed to escape for her safety and for mine. And it came at a really high price. I lost everything, my reputation, my career, my income, my family, my home. I remember packing up my car and driving across the country from California to move in with my parents in Iowa. 6 months of snow cover, surrounded by cornfields, Iowa. That was not my plan for my life. But God knew better than I did. And sadly, he followed us across the country and moved in around the corner. You can imagine the kind of fear we lived in, and eventually the abuse escalated. The police became involved, Child Protective Services. We had social workers coming to our home twice a week for what took almost 4 years to get through the criminal justice system. We had trials in district court and juvenile court. There was an investigation by the Department of Human Services, and throughout these years, it felt like we were never going to be free of this fear. And I can remember asking the attorneys involved. There were about 19, one time I counted all of the professionals and judges and attorneys and social workers involved in our case to protect one child, and there were 19. And I can remember asking several of them, is there any way we can ask a judge to terminate parental rights so that we can move forward and be completely free of this fear of him returning into our lives? And they would always tell me there's no judge in this country that will do that. Only 2% of victims in our situation ever get that in this country. And I started to pray about it, and I remember a few weeks later, my attorney emailed me, and the title said, "You're never going to believe this." And in the body of the email, the judge had messaged all of these professionals that were working on our case and asked them why nobody had suggested termination of parental rights so that we didn't have to live the next 16, 17 years looking over our shoulder. And at the end of this long trauma, the judge called a special hearing, and the state opted to terminate his parental rights. He's now a registered sex offender. And my daughter and I were completely free from our perpetrator. You know, as I look back during those years, my little girl would ask me so many times at night, "Mommy, can we get a new daddy?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, there's not a man on earth that is good enough. I'd tell her that's a job for Jesus. You're going to have to pray about that, which don't tell that to your kids if you don't want them to actually start praying for that. But it's amazing because one day she walked in and she said, "Mommy," I think she was about 4. She said, "Mommy, can't we go to a store and buy a new daddy?" I wasn't looking. I wasn't interested. I was just really, really traumatized by the whole thing. So I wasn't looking, but you know, God brought some things back into our lives and answered those 4 long years of prayers. And not only did I get to sing again, which I never thought I would. During those years, I didn't sing at all. I didn't think that I would get to tour again. And a couple years ago, I went on the longest tour I've ever been on, 9 months from California to Maine, telling churches across this country what God has brought me out of and how he has redeemed it. I didn't think I would have another album, and we just finished a worship album. And I didn't think I would love again. And God brought this amazing man into our lives who is a daddy and a husband with gentle strength. And he's pretty awesome. And this past January, he officially adopted Odessa. So we are official. And my 12-year-old now can attest to what an amazing man he is. And this last song just is an encouragement to me and hopefully to you, because as I stand before you today, I am living proof that no matter what you're going through, no matter how dark the night is, you will survive it. The sun will rise, and the future that God has planned for you is probably way better than anything you've ever dreamed for yourself.